John, ready? All right. Good evening. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Oshtemo Charter Township regular meeting for September 9th, 2025. I'll call this meeting to order and welcome you or invite you to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we'll move to item 3, which is remote location identification for remote attendance when permitted by statute. It's my understanding that Treasurer Bushka will be joining us online, although not permitted to participate by vote. Is she with us online? Okay. I need to get onto the Zoom myself. And we still have 6 members present with 1 absent at this time. So we have a quorum to move forward with this evening's agenda. I welcome a member of this board to share item 4, Township Core Value.
I'll go ahead and do that. Our core value, transparent governmental practices are of the highest priority.
Thank you, Trustee Sikora. Next, we move to item 5, which is approval of the agenda. Are there any members present wishing to make any changes to the agenda presented before you?
I'd like to make a couple changes, please.
Sure.
I'd like to move item 9F, the appointment of Dusty Farmer to the Central County Transit Authority Board into later item, maybe item 10, right after that, just keeping it with it. Mm-hmm. And then right after that, kind of as a follow-up, a discussion about board approval of appointments to exterior committees and groups. And then I'd also like to add later on a discussion about where we're at with our budget, and since we need to file on our L4029 form later this month, and it doesn't seem like we've had much of a discussion on what the numbers are showing or not showing or what we're doing, so I'd like to have a discussion about that, please.
So you would like to move consent agenda 9F for discussion immediately following, but then you want to have a discussion about board appointments in general, as well as the progress of the budget, and then what's the status of the L429?
Well, the discussion of the board approval of appointments is kind of related to the fact that Dusty has brought us an appointment for her role, and I think we need to have a discussion about what our policy is regarding people being appointed to other boards that are not local boards like this, or like a committee. So it'd be a follow-up to the procedure that she's using. And then the further discussion later, separate to those two, is an update on where we're at with our budget, since we have to file the form with the county, and yet we have no idea of any numbers or what's going on with the budget. So I'd like to get some updates on that and have a discussion of where we're going with it.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out where to lay things in for flow of conversation. All right, so the amendments to the agenda are to remove item 9F out of the consent agenda. I will add that immediately following the consent agenda for discussion around the appointment of Dusty Farmer to the Central County Transit Authority Board. Then we will add a conversation about the budget and the L429 after our continued discussion of Public Works presentation.
And we still need a discussion about the board approval of appointments.
I thought you wanted that.
It's a follow-up, so it should be right after Dusty's appointment.
Well, then, do you know anybody that has a question about the agenda is free to send that to me in advance so that I can prepare the material? So, yes, all right, so you want a discussion on board appointments. I mean, to me, that discussion should be ahead of the actual appointment itself.
Well, that's fine.
Okay,
They're just connected.
we'll do discussion and consideration. All right, are there any other changes to the agenda?
I move to approve the amended agenda.
Support.
A motion by trustee Ford and support by trustee Sikora. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 6 with 1 absent. The agenda is approved as amended. Next, we move to item number 6, which is the public officials and community partner updates. And at this time, oh, good. Oh, excellent. Let me make sure that I'm on the Zoom so I can see her hand. I see we have our Larry Stahauer, our liaison to the Road Commission. Is there any updates you wish to share?
I think you'll cover it.
You can take credit. It's okay.
Larry Stahauer, your liaison commission from the Road Commission, Kalamazoo County. We're pleased to have Oshtemo Township matters on our agenda today, and good news regarding Erie, or the part that's unused as a road, and transferring that to the township for $1. So the work of your township, many staff people, some of ours as well, glad to see that happen. And then I also liked hearing about road resurfacing on Driftwood, if I got the name right. Greenwood, and
Green
traffic
Meadow. It was
calming
green.
measures
Something
included. So I don't need to take more time, other than it was good to hear and act on those two things. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you for your support by offering that motion for the sale of the parcel. I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
Do we have any other members here wishing to make public comment, or I'm sorry, public official or community partner updates? I know you're on the agenda, so. All right, at this time, I will close item number 6, and we'll move into the work session. First, we begin with a presentation from Executive Director Sean McBride, who will talk about the Central County Transit Authority.
I got it, okay. Well, good evening, and thank you for having me here tonight. We appreciate the strong partnership between Oshtemo Township and Metro. We have two authorities that manage Metro, the Central County Transportation Authority and the Kalamazoo County Transportation Authority. And Clerk Farmer is the vice chair of the Kalamazoo County Transportation Authority, and most recently she was, the External Relations Committee chair. And so we really appreciate her time and commitment and effort to the works of public transit in the community. So tonight I just want to give you an update on services that we're providing to the community, and a little update on where we're going, and then also that we have a millage on the ballot for November 4th that we want to provide information about and answer any questions you may have. So one of the things that it's really become evident, especially after the pandemic and the change of services over the past few years, is that Metro's focus is providing mobility solutions for all, and what those mobility solutions may be different for each individual. Everyone has different needs, where they need to go, and if they have disabilities or where they're living at. And so what we really wanted to do as an organization is give people options on how they travel throughout the community. Last year, we provided almost 2 million rides, and we're trending over that this year. And since our inception as a public transit authority, so the city of Kalamazoo started running public transit in 1967. There's been 125 million rides provided to the community, and in 2016, public transit was transferred from the city of Kalamazoo to our independent authority at the Central County Transportation Authority. As we provide public transit services, we're really focused on getting people to key destinations. Students, workers in every sector, seniors and persons with disabilities, and those that just choose to use public transit because it meets their lifestyle needs. Metro is an economic driver. Our 3 top destinations are all economic focused. Number 1 by far is transporting individuals to work. Number 2 is for education, and number 3 is shopping, followed closely by medical appointments. And this has really changed over time, that work has clearly become the main use of public transit in our community. One of the other things I want to point out is that what we really see is that public transit's essential, that we often forget that people don't have choice. There's people in our community that don't have choices. They can't use a vehicle for a variety of reasons, and we have some survey data that about 90% of our riders are frequent users of public transit. Their main source of getting around the community is using Metro and public transit. And I've seen survey data that at least 15% of our community does not have vehicles available to them. So I've really seen with our organization, we have about 130 employees within our organization, that we really need to tap into every individual in our community as part of our workforce and make them viable members of the working community, and public transit is one of those solutions. So Metro Bus is our largest service, 1.7 million rides last year. That comes out to about 4,760 trips per day. We have 21 bus routes. Oh, and I saved this wrong, so we're not in Portage, we're in Oshtemo. So we have about 6 routes that serve Oshtemo. Our most ridership is the West Main route serving Oshtemo, and that has about 25 rides per hour. Metro Connect is a countywide service. It's available for anyone to use to go anywhere in the county. It's reduced fares for senior citizens and individuals with disabilities of either $3 or $4 per trip. If you're not a senior or individual with disability, it's $12 per trip. We did 135,000 rides last year, and we provide services to Battle Creek VA Hospital pretty much every day, every weekday. And our newest service is a pilot program started in April of 2014. It's called Metro Link. It's an app-based on-demand service, kind of like an Uber or Lyft type service. So you schedule your trip and destination on your phone. About 95% of our riders use the phone app to do that. And then usually on average, within 15 minutes, a vehicle arrives to take you to your destination. And the trip destinations are really 2 things. So let me go to the next slide. We have 3 zones. We have a west zone, east zone, and south zone. The south zone is pretty much Portage. The east zone is Comstock, Parchment, and parts of Kalamazoo Township. The west zone is significantly Oshtemo Township and Kalamazoo Township. And since inception, I've updated numbers. We've done about 77,000 rides. We're averaging 7,000 rides per month. And other thing we're very proud of is that we've won a couple grants for services. We won a competitive grant with MDOT last year to expand our zones. So we have done service expansion, and we are seeing good ridership in our expanded zones that expanded about 4 or 5 months ago. And we also are partnering currently with Kalamazoo County. They're using some of the emergency funds for the tornado from last summer to provide dedicated service to Pavilion Township and Pavilion Estates. We're averaging about 100 rides per month out to Pavilion Estates and back. This slide, let me just go, and one other thing I want to talk about is the West Zone, which primarily serves Oshtemo Township. That's the zone with by far the highest ridership within our MetroLink 3 zones. And there's really 2 ways that you use the service. One is to go from point to point within the zone. So we have a Dusty, or a Clerk Farmer, and has a fellow board member that lives out in Evergreen Estates. He takes the MetroLink to a service just across the road. It's not accessible to him with his mobility, and so he uses that multiple times a day, so from point to point. And then the other way to use it is if you're going outside the zone, or if within the zone, if it makes more sense, if it's quicker, it will connect you to a fixed-route bus line, and you can go anywhere within the service area. The service is $1.50 per trip, so it's the same price as the fixed-route bus system. And if you're a senior citizen or individual with disability, it's 75 cents. Here's our ridership levels. It's exactly what you want to see when you're growing a program, is that it's growing each month. We had a little dip in the summer, which is expected here. It's all of our services dip a little bit when the students go away during the summer, and then we expect that to grow again starting this fall. And then the bottom chart shows the number of riders, and those are individual riders. The orange part of the bar is new riders that are trying the service each month, and then the blue bar is, I've got it backwards. The orange bar is returning riders that have continued to use it, so it's good to see that people have tried it, continue to use it, and then we have new riders that are trying it each month. And if you want more information, the QR code there has all the information on it, and to load the phone app. 12-minute pickup time, and like a lot of phone apps, you can rate your ride. So we're currently it's 4.9 out of 5 ride rating for it. And a lot of our riders report having a disability. 6 of the 11 vehicles have a lift access for MetroLink. And then 82% of the trips are connected to the fixed route system. So we're very, very proud of this and are looking to extend this service moving forward. And then finally, we're very proud of our partnerships. I've talked about this before, but we value being out in the community and hearing from others and how public transit can meet the needs of the community. I'll talk a little bit about the youth mobility programs. We have a partnership with the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence and the Kalamazoo Public School System. 500 passes are issued to the 4 high schools within Kalamazoo Public Schools. And then the principals at each of the schools distribute those passes for family need, sports need, job need, and just emergency need. So those 4 reasons, and we love that partnership and getting new riders in the system early in life. Now to the exciting part, Metro has a $27.5 million budget. We are funded in 4 key areas. One is federal dollars, federal competitive grants, state grants, voter-approved millages, and fair revenue. Our fair revenue collection is about 15% of our overall revenue collection, which is pretty high for systems of our size. And then at the state level, I'll talk about that in another slide here. Speaking about millages, we have a millage election coming up this fall on November 4th. The CCTA, which includes the urban areas of the county, so it'll be City of Portage, City of Kalamazoo, City of Parchment, Kalamazoo Township, Oshtemo Township precincts 3 through 9, and Comstock Township. So all of Comstock Township will be able to vote on this. It's for a 1.1 millage, and it's for 5 years, so it'll be 26 through 2030. And this will specifically fund the fixed-route bus service, so maintaining that, and also continuing the pilot program for MetroLink, so continuing that into the future. The current millage that is in place now is 0.9 mils, so it's an increase of 0.2 mils. That increase will fund the expanded service for MetroLink. And then we're also, like a lot of organizations, feeling the impacts of inflation over the last 5 years. For example, a fixed-route bus that we purchased pre-pandemic in 2019 was $525,000. We are projecting our next bus purchase to be $775,000. So about a 40% increase just in that period of time. Just for your information, we keep our buses for about 14 years and 600,000 miles, and we'll buy about 3 buses per year. And I know people are interested in this too, that currently we're purchasing diesel buses. We have about a third of our buses are hybrid battery buses. There is quite a cost difference between hybrid battery buses and electric buses. Hybrid battery buses are about coming close to $1 million per bus. And then electric buses are even approaching $2 million per bus at this point. So if you want one of those buses, we need win competitive grants. We've been applying for those competitive grants, and we should be learning in the next month or so if we're in this next round of competitive grant funding that would enable us to get one of those hybrid buses or a few hybrid buses. One of the other things that the millage is addressing is the lack of funding from the state of Michigan. I was just in Lansing today. We are part of the Act 51 formula that goes to roads and bridges, but it also goes to public transit. The amount going to public transit is on a precipitous decline. Just a few years ago, how it works is we're reimbursed for every dollar we spend. And the Act 51 fund reimburses us for eligible expenses. We were reimbursed for a rate of about 34 cents on the dollar. At this point, with the proposed budget from the governor's office, we'd be at 24 cents per dollar reimbursement. It's still being negotiated. Hopefully it increases in the next month or so as the budget's finalized. But that is one of the challenges, future challenges, ongoing challenges of funding public transit. So moving forward, our goals are to provide mobility solutions for all, continue to innovate by growing ridership and enhancing the rider experience. One of the projects we're working on is fare collection systems, as well as our public outreach and communication system. So we're really trying to provide better real-time communication to our riders, especially we're anticipating a very, very heavy construction season next summer, and we'll want to be able to give real-time notifications on any changes or delays that a rider could feel. Continue to cultivate community partnerships and build public confidence through service excellence. So again, I want to thank you for your partnership and having me here tonight, and take any questions.
Are there any questions for
Yeah,
Mr. McBride?
I have a quick question. I don't know if it's quick, but first of all, I do love this. I remember when you were here last year to talk about the Metro Connect. And I'm curious with that, because it's kind of compared to Uber, right, which you said yourself. Is it, how often, if you know, are they picking up additional riders? And do you know that before you book or does it tell you, okay, it'll be this time range when you get there? Do you know what I mean? How?
I will give
I
you
would imagine a lot of times it's really just a simple single trip.
As we grow, we're expecting, and we should have more multiple person trips. At this point, it's still a lot of individual trips for you, which is nice, people like that, but I've used it actually in another system in Dallas, tested the system when I was, we were procuring them, and we picked up we dropped off about 3 people coming and going along the way, and it was,
Because they had been around longer in that area, I'm assuming.
or just convenient that we deviate a little bit this way and pick them up. So the system is designed to be efficient, so we can pick up as many people as possible, and, but we're pretty light on those multiple individual trips at this point.
At this point, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so when you go outside of the county, just the VA, is that the only one that, okay.
That's correct, and that's with our Metro Connect service, so it's kind of our dial-a-ride service, and it's really targeted, so you pre-schedule that trip up to 2 weeks in advance, and as late as some same-day trips, but it's the more advanced you schedule the trip, the better that you'll get the time you need to go. So we're doing about a trip a day where we'll drop off in the morning and pick up individuals in the afternoon, and we're actually working with the VA organization, the Veterans Group Commission with the county right now on how we expand public transit services and meet more needs of our veteran community.
So have you been affected by clawbacks from federal dollars?
Good question. At this point, we have not. I've heard some concerns on some specific grants, but our core grants are based on formula. None of those have been impacted. And I don't anticipate, and not too concerned at this point, that they'll be touching our core public transit funds from the federal government.
Does the transit system run like 24 hours?
Good question. We run 7 days a week. We run 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday.
Okay. We've talked in the past about people getting to work, like when we've had some expansions in the township, and asked, well, do you know how many people are you on a bus route, of businesses? But my real question, kind of odd, is how do bus drivers get to work? Do they use the bus? Or is it not running at that time? I mean, it's just like, how do can you do that?
That's a good question. Yeah, our newest bus drivers usually work the morning shift, which is at 6 a.m., so they have to be there, 5:30, 5:45. So they would not be able to use the fixed-route bus system at that point. But I know of a few bus drivers that do use it, usually for one leg of their journey.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have just a couple. I know when the Metro Connect was first initiated, there was some conversation around camera installation in those vehicles. Did that ever come to fruition?
You were the first person that brought it up and triggered me to ask about that, and it was installed several months ago. And so there are cameras on each of the cars, and they are upgrading their audio recording on each of the vehicles now.
Well, that's good. And my concern really just came out of, putting a youth passenger in the car and then having that sense of security. So I'm glad to have that. And then my last comment question is regarding the passes that, if you could go back to that slide, that are provided for youth. So, which I'm really glad you do that. Those passes are funded by the foundation, which I totally get. And then they're provided to KPS students you give them to KPS and they send them out?
There's
Or they distribute them?
500 passes, and we did 400 before, so I could do the math quicker, but let's say 150 go to the two big, Central and Loy Norix, and then the others are split between Kilp and Phoenix.
Okay.
And then the principals at each of the schools put together the systems for identifying the student and distribute them the schools.
So I think I've talked to you about this before, but I'm going to put this bug in your ear again. There is a K-RISA High School at the Kalamazoo County Juvenile Home that has students that live in Kalamazoo County. And I'd really appreciate I'll help make the connection that some of those passes be distributed to KPS students that are attending the school at the juvenile home. Not all the kids reside at the juvenile home at that school. Some of them are bused there from their home locations, but an outside organization is currently funding bus passes for those kids that are there, but I don't think they should be left out of the distribution of the passes that are provided by the foundation. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay. Understood. And it's a Foundation for Excellence decision. And
Oh, it's
I can-
Foundation for Excellence.
Yeah, it's not, certainly not.
Better yet, I'll bug them too.
Yes. And I would love if you could connect us with the appropriate representative at K-RISA, and we could have some conversations on how to best meet the needs.
It's not a ton, that's the part that's sort of, it's not hundreds of passes, it's tens of passes, and, it's not in the K-RISA budget, and, it seems like it's something that's available to some students that, for whatever reason, this group can't seem to get a hold of those. And the bureaucracy behind the scenes is the part that's missing in order to make that happen. So I'm glad to know it's Foundation for Excellence and not KCF, so.
And we, on a related note, we did have conversations with the Foundation for Excellence last year about some alternative high school situations, and they begin the process. It has to go through a variety of approvals to add those to the overall,
I mean, if
overall
we're thinking
consideration.
about uplifting the most vulnerable youth, that to me seems like starting point, I mean, granted, they're already in the system, we know that, but, a bus pass, if that can get them to a lesson or an after-school job or whatever, is a big deal. So.
May it have possibly been the issue? I know that there were issues at least a few years ago with some of the high school kids fighting on the buses, particularly at the downtown station. And I think, didn't you guys stop that for a little while in response?
We did, so originally in 2020, 2019, 2020, that's when the program originated, and the passes were issued to every high school student in Kalamazoo Public Schools. And it was just, the magnitude was overwhelmed the system and created issues, including that. We've grown we went down to 400 passes, now we're increasing to 500 passes, and we've had 0 incidents.
And the school is the one passing them out, deeming who can have them, so if there has been an issue, I'm assuming they're probably gonna say, no, you broke the rules.
Yep, there's
and you're not-
eligibility requirements and behavior expectations with that. And then we also partner with KidNet, a nonprofit organization, and they help facilitate. I can't communicate with teenagers very well, including, especially my own. They're experts at that.
They speak a different language.
They speak a different language, and they help identify issues and help speak the teenagers' language on this is how you ride a bus, and this is appropriate behavior. So it's really a partnership amongst all of us on using public transit, which will serve everyone well. That's a good life skill to have for everyone.
Thanks, Sean. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
I was way off when I told her 10 or 15 minutes for your presentation.
Am I over?
Oh, it's fine.
No,
it
it's
was
good conversation, absolutely.
And it has two spots on the agenda, so she's got all the time. All right, thank you
Thank you.
for this presentation and the good work you guys do. I always enjoy
Oh, getting hit.
coming down to Metro and talking all things transportation, actually. Okay, next in our work session, we have a presentation from Public Works, Anna Horner. And so as you should see on your agenda, we have time to, I don't want to limit Anna's presentation because of the depth of the material. So we will start it. If we don't get through it all before a break, then there's time reserved later on the agenda for her to continue that presentation. So with that, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm going to give this a second to load here. And I did way better with pictures this time. So, thank you. I do love talking about the budget. It's a lot of work. Not everybody loves talking about public infrastructure budgeting, but it is exciting to see these projects come along. Now in my 5th year. I've been through a full cycle of the capital improvement plan, and it is exciting to see the projects come to fruition. So my hope tonight is that we can talk through the main public works funds. We categorize those as the water fund, the general fund, but specifically just for non-motorized when it relates to public works, the sewer fund, and the road fund. And then I'm hoping to get some board discussion about priorities for projects and how to fund them. Less, so many dollars, but just where would you like staff to seek out funding? How would you like us to pursue projects? And then we have the expertise and the ability and the connections to go pursue that funding and make those things happen. And this is one of our mandatory connections that just recently got done. So that is a nice, long, straight shot. I like this picture because people often worry that their connections to sewer are going to be very, very disruptive to their backyards and mature trees, and they really can make them pretty low impact in some cases. This is not every case, but this is a good case. So I don't typically start with the water fund, but right now the water fund is the really easy fund for public works. So I'm going to start there. As everybody on this board is probably aware, but I'll make sure I reiterate for the public, is that we worked very hard to get a new water service agreement between the Regional Commission and the city. That was finalized in 2021. However, for the past few years, we have been working through the implementation of that. And obviously with any feat like that, you start to learn lessons along the way. We have had one amendment to the contract, but it has been a very positive working relationship. The UPC, or the Utility Policy Committee, was created through that water service agreement and that contract, and been really a great balance of city and township representation. We have accountants, we have engineers, we have policymakers, people more on the construction side of things, all involved in the conversation. So it's really been very beneficial. I think everybody at the table is really trying to do the best for the system moving forward. So with that, one of the big achievements of that water service agreement is that we have equal rates both inside and outside of the city for the water system. And it also allowed the system and the city operating the system to basically overtake all of the collection of fees that we were previously doing, and have one system-wide capital improvement plan. So we no longer have to collect fees to then expand the system. So we have an existing fund balance from previous projects and previous connection fees, and we are no longer really getting in any revenue to that fund, which might sound nerve-wracking in some cases, but our expenditures have also then been significantly reduced. So I just, again, kind of putting them in a bigger picture, is that for our fund balance, which is over $2 million, we are, for the past 2 years, have really only spent about $80,000. So I am confident that it will hold us through for quite a few years, decades, I should say, with our current fund balance to keep operating at the bare minimum. And then what we have encountered in the last, especially this year with all of our sewer projects, is that we have been budgeting for some capital, and I'm calling those contribution and aid projects because there are situations where we're putting in sewer and sewer's gravity controlled, but the water is pressurized. So when the two conflict, it is much easier to move the water than it is to move the sewer. And so we end up doing a little bit of water work through a sewer project, and so those costs are eligible with our existing water funds. Another example is our Chime Street project where we are installing sewer. We are also installing curb and gutter on that road, and it comes with drainage structures and an enclosed drainage system then, and we have to have separation between the different utilities. So we're having to move the water main to accommodate the storm catch basins. And so we're going to pay for that water-related cost with our water fund. So the board will see some capital related to water, but it's really things that are incidental to our other road and sewer projects. So, again, that was the easiest low-hanging fruit, so I went with that one
As much
first.
as we try to flex that around,
Yeah.
Attorney Porter.
Yeah, we always, we know the water fund's there. We have not forgotten about it and the ways that we can
Are you sure? we
use
can?
that. So, and then some of the other stuff that we have kind of as ongoing costs in that operating is easement maintenance. So we did have Pride and Newhoff go through and look at all of our water pipes and where we should have easements if they're not in a public right-of-way, and track down whether we had a recorded easement. And there are a handful where we don't. And so we need to go through the process of making sure the easement description is correct, and then following up with the current property owners to get that completed. So that's something we're going to do as we have free time, so we're just going to keep it in the operating costs. And then from a GIS perspective, we are still keeping our maps up to date with the water system. A lot of that information can just be shared with the city because, again, they're collecting it as projects go in. But it is still helpful to have those updated, that updated information on our end.
Anna, can you go back to the easement maintenance? We missed, can you repeat that? We missed some of the.
Yeah, like
properties?
like we find in our folders that the easement was a requirement of site plan approval, and it was drafted, and everybody agreed to it in the minutes, but then the actual signing and recording of the easement didn't happen. And these are easements that are probably 20 to 30 years old, so the pipe got installed, people are connected to it, we're operating it, maintaining it, and we just need to go back to the property owner, say that they agreed to all this, back in the day, and that we just want to make sure that we have these documents in place. It's really in their best interest so that we can access the main and make sure that if there is a water main break or a leak, we can repair it and get an access to it, so.
Yeah. About how many are there, and would you foresee any pushback, Jim, on that?
No, I wouldn't.
Legally?
If these properties want to continue to have public service, I think they would cooperate with us. If not, and something happened, worst case scenario, we'd have to shut the water off. So I
Yeah.
think we will not have a problem obtaining these easements.
And I don't think there's any more, on the water side, there's no more than 15, but I think it's about 10. So not a significant amount. And again, I think it was probably just time in history about who was following up with that. It was probably before we had a public works department, those kinds of things. So again, I think it helps that we have good meeting minutes. Thank you to all of the people that keep those detailed, so.
Quick question on that too, then. So would we have to pay now the rates today for those easements? So do we have an estimate of the additional cost this not completing it may incur?
I will say of the ones that I am familiar with, they were, again, all part of their site plan approval. So it was part of, again, them expanding their building and wanting to get connected. So kind of like Jim alluded to, it was in coordination with them building and developing. So no, I don't expect that we would go offer that cost for an easement, like we wouldn't have offered it at the time of development either.
Right, it's not as if these parties are receiving service, they're going to want to cooperate to continue that public service, and the only way they can do that with us to have access is to grant the easement. If they refused, we simply couldn't access the property if there was a problem. So I don't anticipate we should be charged anything.
And does the easement, it's still their property legally, correct? I guess I could ask either one of you. It's still legally their property, correct? It's just the easement is just giving us permission to access
Correct.
equipment?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so that the cost related to easement maintenance is not paying for the easements. It's just following up on the paperwork, taking the time if we have to pull title work, things like that, to do all the filings. Okay, keep the water fund in mind. Okay, so again, for the general fund related to public works, it's really limited at this point in time to just the non-motorized projects. And I know this is a little hard to read, but my goal with this is that these are all the projects in our current, about to be old master plan. So there's quite a few of them that are still kind of outstanding, you know, that we had identified at some point in time to get done. There's quite a few of them that are still in the works. They're starting to pile up in 2026 because we've had grants and designs and easements underway for quite a few years, and now we just need to get them constructed. So part of what I want to share with this, and I mentioned it at the last board meeting, for the board to consider is that our road millage does allow for non-motorized funding as it relates to a complete street and other users. So these are some big costs. Again, hopefully in 2026, we're going to get a big bulk of them out of the way. These are not true project costs. These are just the Oshtemo contribution to them. So for example, the 9th Street sidewalk, the 6-foot sidewalk, Stadium to Quail Run on the west side, which says $1 million here. The project is more than that, but we have a little over $500,000 in a grant, TAP grant. So same for the KL Avenue shared use path. Our contribution is about 1.2. We have, I think, 1.47, if I remember the number correctly. So $1,470,000 in a grant to complete that. So again, just putting that out there. We still have a lot of non-motorized to get done that we want to work towards. The line on the bottom is, again, an annual investment to starting to do some of the repair and maintenance that needs to be done from our asset management plan and some of those smaller connections. And then not included on the capital side, but we did put about $40,000 into maintenance related to snow removal starting in 2026. We haven't defined all the boundaries and parameters on that, but we wanted to make sure we had something to start in the budget. And I asked Zach today if he just, that's what it was going to cost to have him go do it, or if he actually got estimates for that. And he said he did reach out to a few snow removal companies, and it really depends on how we want to structure that contract. Is it per snow? Is it a seasonal thing? And so he got anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000, and so that's where the 40 came from. So it's a good starting point, and I think as we, again, go through the first year of that and get through the policy behind it, the number could change. But again, I put that in the operating side of things because I want that to be recognized as a ongoing cost that we're going to commit to. It's not like a one-time capital project.
Anna, before you advance, I just have I usually have my CIP with me at the meeting, and I left it on my desk. This is what reflects is in the CIP right now, or did you move things out of 2025 and put them in 2026?
I moved things and put them into 2026.
Okay.
And I think, you know, another way to look at this, and I'm not saying there's a right way or a wrong way, but another way to look at it is just how much work we have to get done and how, I mean, some of these projects, it's kind of like retrofitting sewer. We're at the kind of problem children, if you will, for where we're trying to fit paths, steep slopes, wetlands, property acquisition. And so that's where some of these costs are coming, and we're putting more money into maybe shorter segments because they're more complicated. And some of the requirements that we are under from a design standpoint with the road commission are increasing those costs, and they're pushing them out each year. So when we initially planned to do 9th Street, our contribution was much more like $600,000, but we've been seeing prices increase year over year. So it's, I think, really imperative that we get some of those things compromised on and worked through in the next year, or these costs will keep escalating. We have the potential of losing our grant funding. But at some point, from an engineering perspective, we can design anything, but is that in the best interest of the public, and is it in the best use of all the dollars?
I have one more question, if I might, about the CIP. Are all the projects that you listed here, were they previously in 2025? No. So which projects, I mean, I know the 9th Street one for sure. Which projects were in 2025, but then were moved into 2026? Right, mine looks the same way.
Okay, so the projects that were moved over, Drake Road, which I'm still hopeful we're gonna get that done this year with the one with over Amtrak, so I haven't moved that one over. Whitegate has been moved.
Okay,
KL Phase 2, so that's from the bridge to Copper Beach, that's this 1.2 million.
oh, down here.
That was in 2026 in our current CIP, so that hasn't
Okay.
been moved. And then the 9th Street sidewalk was moved from 25 to 26.
Okay,
And the H Avenue shared use path was moved as well.
so what was in 26 CIP then?
KL Phase 2 was the big one. That's this 1.2 million down here.
Okay.
Towards the bottom.
Gotcha. What about Whitegate up here, or this one?
That was in 25.
That was in 25, okay.
We haven't been able to work through all the design on that either.
So I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're showing here. There's a lot of things here that have no numbers at all for all these years. Are you,
I'm showing there's a big gap in what we want to complete
so this
and
is
what we
like
have
a
budgeted.
wish
Yeah.
list or something?
Yeah, this was everything that was in the master plan,
Okay,
the
gotcha.
previous master plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I think what I'm trying to illustrate is the further out these projects get pushed, the bigger that gap becomes.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm wondering what was in 25 versus what's in 26, and, yeah.
I've got one question for you, Anna. Maybe it's actually a question for Jim. So if you're a property owner and you've got a non-motorized 10-foot path in front of your place, if the bushes are growing into it, is that your responsibility to trim? Is that the township taking that on? If there's an animal carcass on the path, I just wanted to understand whose responsibility it is, and then depending on that, I wanted to know if that last line item would be utilized for that kind of activity.
If it's a dead animal, that would be our responsibility unless the person living there is the one that shot it or something. Short of that, if they have trees or bushes growing onto our pathway, they should be responsible for
Okay.
trimming those and taking care of those. I think mainly what she's focused on is probably the cracks and the
Correct. Okay.
decay that
Yep.
takes place to the path.
That type of
Possibly
maintenance.
snow removal,
That's fine.
right?
That doesn't include snow removal, so I always describe it as capital maintenance and routine maintenance.
Okay.
So the capital maintenance, needing to cut out a crack, patch in some asphalt to seal it, to actually take out some concrete and do a ramp over again, I'm calling that capital maintenance, and
Okay.
that's this 250.
So then like cracks with weeds growing in them, that type of stuff to be repaired would come out of that line? Okay.
And I appreciate that the Public Works is focusing on this because that is one of the areas where the township has liability.
Yeah.
By law, to
and I
maintain those facilities.
see the facilities inducing future demand as well.
They
It's
will.
gonna happen.
Well, and that's a
So-
good, great, I mean, so we're getting to a point where do we need to invest in the maintenance before we expand? Because we have facilities that need to be maintained.
Certainly, I think, yeah, I mean, we have to have an ongoing maintenance plan in place. I
Yeah.
think the question I had, I wanted to understand a little bit of the responsibility, and with that, I will probably connect with you, Jim, on some property that needs a phone call.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think of if there's anything else I wanted to say about this, but we might have to come back to it. But that's, again, what I'm really trying to show is that some of these projects are significant investments when you think of what the general fund brings in. Yes, we've been knowing about them for years, and they've been in the CIP, so thankfully, we've kind of built up the balance to pay for them. But even the one furthest out on Stadium Drive, where we got TAP funding, I sat with our planning director and our supervisor, and I was like, I'm nervous that we can commit to this, because you have to commit so far out and start working on the easement acquisition and the design to get through MDOT's lengthy process to use this type of funding, because the TAP funds are essentially federal funds. So there is a point at which I don't think that the TAP funds are necessarily the most efficient way to get a project done either, but because of the way CAT's participants work well together, they really allocate the annual amount to one project, so then it does become worth it. But if they started to only give, $200,000 towards a long sidewalk project, it wouldn't cover your costs for all the extra documentation that you have to go through, all the extra testing, all the extra clearances, all the extra paperwork. So it would be easier to just do by ourselves. So, grant funds do come with some strings. Okay, this is a chart I actually shared at the last meeting as well. We are underway on our sewer USDA projects, and that is definitely an important way to start this. And it's been in the works for about a decade, so this is kind of showing how these initial, the 4 funding mechanisms we're essentially using to pay back the debt, how they contributed to the repayment of the loans. And if you went back pre-2021, we didn't have the road fund. So again, it's really evolved. The board and previous boards has really committed to finding a way to creatively, equitably handle this, these projects. So, our ending fund balance in 2024 was about $3 million in the sewer fund. And we've been kind of tracking where our numbers are. I say we, Zach is the one that does our monthly reporting and checks all this and keeps up with POs and change orders and everybody's contracts. And if I plug in kind of where we're estimating to be at the end of the year, we will still have just over $2 million in the fund balance for the sewer fund. Some of that was going towards phase 1. What this doesn't show is this is just the expansion projects, and when you get funding like bonds, they want to have very concrete ways to pay back that debt. So on top of this, just putting together numbers for the development that we know of in the next 5 years, developers that have come talk to planning, projects that are currently under review at the Planning Commission, those types of things. We have thousands of dwelling units proposed, and so if we kept our connection fees as is, we would be, again, in the next 5 to 10 years, looking at about $5 million in additional connection fees for pipe that's already been put in the ground, that's ready for people to connect, that would go into our sewer fund, and get some of the other projects done outside of the USDA areas, or some of the projects that were originally in the USDA scope that we had to defer. So I just want to keep the differentiation between the two is that we have the expansion projects and the revenues that are going towards to pay those, but we still have development occurring all over this town, if you've driven anywhere near Township Hall. So there are still a lot of projects coming, and we, I don't want to count our chickens before our eggs hatch, but again, these are projects that are very far along in the process. We're looking for, how they're going to get across the finish line. So we still have a lot of connections to come from pipe that's already in the ground, already been paid for. And I prioritize the picture over the chart here, so hopefully you can still read it at this font. So back in August of 2024, I had a similar chart. It was much longer. It was all the Phase 1 and Phase 2 original neighborhoods, and we talked about having to defer some of them and how many connections each one brought, and the PASER ratings and the septic ages. So these three projects are what we are proposing makes up Phase 2 of the USDA projects. They originally were going to cost less than $20 million. I am confident in these numbers. We did get some estimates from our consulting engineers that were higher than that, and I think there is some hesitation with the market, and what might happen, but we have worked really hard to put ourselves in a position to bid at the best time of the year, to really go through our plans and specs and make sure that they are detailed enough that the contractor doesn't have to take on as much risk, to understand our pay items and what they cover so that we're not questioning, how things get paid or having to add items after the fact like we had to do on 7th Street and West Main. It's higher than I'd like it to be, but I am confident in this number. It was even, again, when I presented in 2024 about what we thought 2025 was going to be, we used 2023 estimates and put 20% on them. And I was like, there's no way it's going to be up 20% in 2 years. And sure enough, that's what we're seeing. So Public Works has been working really hard, again, to use our expertise and make sure that we understand what is included in those design plans and the specifications so that the estimates are very accurate. I'd rather do the due diligence up front and understand that than have surprises during construction, especially when we're talking about these large costs. So that's my approach, and I think it will serve us well, because we do need to look at additional funding then to make up the difference. And again, we've talked to the board about looking at partnering with the county to use the Board of Public Works and some of their statutory funding mechanisms through Act 185. 188 or 185? 185, okay.
Yeah, I just,
A lot of numbers
a
today.
reminder, because so you remember Anna presented these numbers, I believe it was August of 2024. And so this is an update to what she presented in August, particularly around the costs and the additional bonding needs beyond the USDA.
And when I presented last year, I had included 8th Street in there. And so that is a difference with this list, is that again, another project has been reduced from the scope, and that's how we're holding prices. So I don't want to be, I don't want it to seem like the number hasn't changed. It's the scope has changed. And again, we're really trying to stick to the priorities of getting the most people connected, focus on the roads that really are well beyond their service life, and again, the environmental impacts of these septic systems. So, it's not maybe represented well in this chart versus what I presented last year, but that is what is happening here. And it's been happening as these projects continue to get delayed.
Anna, it's 6:34, so is this a good, can we pause here?
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm ending on a high note right now, but yes, it's good because
Well,
I was going to go to the road fund
I think
next.
it's a digest moment, so
Yeah.
I'm going to adjourn this meeting for 10 minutes, and we will return at 6:45 for regular session. Thank you.
I guess the picture is good, huh?
Right. John, Kenji, you guys ready to go? All right, good evening. I will call this meeting back to order at 6:45 of the Oshtemo Charter Township regular
Oh, I guess I
session.
have some time. Sorry, I was going to jump right back.
Oh, sorry, and you know what? I didn't have my mic back to order of or on item number 8, which is public comment on consent agenda or non-regular session items. So at this time, it would be the time, if you're a member of the public, whether it be on Zoom or here with us in the audience, if there's anything in the consent agenda or a non-regular session item.
I move we approve the consent agenda, items A through E.
Support.
Motion by trustee Sikora and support by trustee Ford. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6 with 1 absent. Next, we will move to our amended agenda item, which is discussion and consideration. I guess the discussion will start with questions from Mr. Sikora regarding the appointment process.
Well, actually, we can deal with the appointment of Dusty Farmer to her position. It was just that, this was just a lead into the next part. Or did we agree to reverse them on it? I guess, whatever. Anyway, so the question comes, if someone is appointed to a board such as the Central County Transit Authority as a representative from Oshtemo, shouldn't the board be approving their appointment to that board? Is that part of our policy? Do we have that as a policy? Because they're representing Oshtemo.
Part of that is statutory, and if I'd have known this was an issue in advance, I'd have brought the statute with me. My understanding generally of state statute is any board appointments typically come from a recommendation from the supervisor and confirmation by the board, similar to what, they do on a federal level for a lot of positions. The president, makes a recommended appointment, and then Congress confirms. That's basically how it typically happens. So I don't know that it's so much a board policy as it is state statute. That may not be true in all cases, though, because particularly with regard to the last appointment that we had, that was not an appointment that we could make. I can't remember, the appointment was to,
Sports group?
yeah, the sports group. That was out of our hands totally, because we're not a member of that authority. So that authority made the determination to appoint a representative from Oshtemo Township. They chose the representative from the township, and we literally had no say in that. No offense to that organization, it was simply statutorily, we had no say in that. Of any, or of all the boards that I'm familiar with that we make appointments to, looking at most of the statutory provisions generally say supervisor recommends, board approves. And that's typical of almost all the positions. It's planning commission, ZBA, all of those positions. I haven't looked at the transit position specifically, or the statute governing that, but generally, most of the situations where a township would appoint someone to a board, almost all the ones that I can think of as we sit here, require recommendation, approval of the board, recommendation from supervisor.
Right, in the case of this, I totally support it. I mean, I've talked with Dusty about it. I have no issue with her appointment there. What my thought process is that she's representing Oshtemo on a board, I guess the county is then going to approve.
Yes,
Here.
it has to go to the county.
It has to go to the county, but she's serving as an Oshtemo representative, and so Oshtemo board would approve her sending her name to the county in order to approve that. Versus, like I think in the case of Trustee Chapman, who is on the environmental board, you're there as a private citizen, basically, who happens to live in Oshtemo, right? You're not.
No, I'm there representing Oshtemo.
And that was part of the how it was presented so my question is, I was always taught that if I don't speak for the board unless the board tells me that I can speak for them, I can be myself. If I want to be on a board and I happen to live in Oshtemo, that's one thing. If I'm being appointed to a position representing Oshtemo, I would come and ask for the board's endorsement or approval to represent the township. Is that, maybe that's not quite
But I
clear?
still think it's, the supervisor would recommend the appointment
Sure.
to that board.
Sure, but the board would still approve.
So in
Oh,
my,
absolutely.
so in the
Typically.
case of the environmental, she recommended, I applied, I do not know if the board had a vote on that, but she recommended, I applied, and then was accepted for that position. I do not know if the board voted in that case. But you're right, that would have been the most appropriate position. Anything that's being nominated to be, just like the Senate, to provide advice and consent.
Well, just to clarify though, you may be representing Oshtemo, but when the post went out, they were not looking specifically for someone from Oshtemo. They were looking at people at large, right?
There are, and that's where I have to clarify, and I will look it up. There are township positions, there are at-large positions, there's a variety of positions. So I'll look up and see what the actual position was. I believe it was township. I may double check that.
As we look at this issue, Neil, one of the things my office certainly could do would be to break down the different committees that the board members serve on and lay out for you exactly how those appointments are made by statute or otherwise. If there's a position that isn't clear under the statute, you certainly could adopt a policy as to how that would be done. But again, I can't think of any right now where it follows any other pattern other than recommendation from supervisor. But that's from the top of my head, which I don't usually like to speak to that. So I can do,
We have
A
a
report
list,
on
it's
that.
dated, it needs to be updated, but we have a list of
Boards and
board
committees.
member,
appointments.
the board, the various boards and committees they sit on. It actually includes department heads too, and I'm certain it needs to be refreshed.
Yeah, where this loops back around to was the earlier discussion about the youth sports facility, where trustee Chapman pointed out that there isn't a position specifically assigned to Oshtemo, and talked about that whole thing. We would like to have that changed so that there is someone, a seat specific for Oshtemo to represent Oshtemo. And how the supervisor was chosen to represent Oshtemo on that board,
Right.
and then approved by the county. I'm wondering, shouldn't, whoever is appointed as the representative of Oshtemo, shouldn't the board vote on approving and appointing them or recommending them?
Not unless you have statutory authority to do so. And in that case, you do not have statutory authority to make that appointment.
But as someone who's representing Oshtemo, shouldn't you be authorized to represent Oshtemo?
Again, we were not part of that authority, so I don't know how, even a vote would be nothing but, I'm just trying to think of the right term. It wouldn't hold any weight. If an agency, let's say the governor decided to appoint one of the people on this board to a state agency, she doesn't need your permission to appoint that person to a state agency.
No, she doesn't.
Right.
But wouldn't,
Would it require this board to approve that? I would say no. Why? Because you would have to, you can't do anything or take any action that's not authorized by statute. Under what statutory authority would you choose to approve, consent, or agree with the governor's appointment? There's no authority to do that. Same thing is true with this authority that regulates the sports center. They don't need your consent or agreement. By law, we have no legal authority to say anything other than, gee, we would have appreciated it had you structured your authority in a fashion that allowed the board to appoint the representative. Then you would have had authority. It's similar to the contracts that we've entered in with the city of Kalamazoo for UPC. Those are structured in such a way as to have the boards of different communities appoint their representatives. But that didn't necessarily have to be the case. They could have formed that authority by saying, by contract, saying the supervisor of each unit will be the representative. And that would have been a legal process. As long as you approved the contract, then it would have not been up to the board to approve or consent or agree to that appointment.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing that we could tell the governor not that we don't want to be part of it, or we don't like their choice, or whatever. My question is more of, I guess maybe it's a personal thing, the way I was taught over many boards that I've served on, that if you're representing a group on a board as a board member and they're tapping you as a board member, you should seek the support of the board that you're representing to take that position or serve that purpose. Because you can always tell the governor, no, I don't want to serve because I'm busy and my board thinks my time is spent elsewise.
Okay,
I just
so-
think that maybe it's more of a personal standpoint, or maybe it's more of my education on boards, that I wouldn't accept a position without asking the board whether they think I'm okay to spend my time that way representing and speaking for the board. So maybe it's a different.
It's a bit of a different question, but I guess I understand the question better now. I've never encountered that, nor have I ever seen a situation where somebody was appointed to, say, a public authority by contract, ever come and seek the board approval. So my experience in 40 years is all those designations to certain public organizations or public bodies where they're there by contract or otherwise, if it's an established position that says, well, the treasurer will always serve in this position, the clerk will always serve in this position, or the supervisor will serve in the position on these, say, countywide boards, I've never, in my 40 years' experience, ever had one of those positions come back and say to the board, is it okay if I serve on the board? I've never seen that. I can take a look at that from a legal standpoint to see whether or not there's any state or statutory and/or case law on that issue, but I'm not familiar with, and I've worked with a lot of different regional authorities and regional committees where when the committees were formed, the representative was designated by agreement. And that person never came back and said, is it okay if I represent the Regional Water Wastewater Commission?
But those were all approved, regional wastewater.
The agreements were.
So we were approved to serve at those positions. As Sherry and I were approved to serve in those positions by the board. It was a board appointment.
I think the trustee position is, I'm not sure whether the supervisor position is.
I don't know.
And to clarify the question you asked, yes, I am appointed to the township sector. So that would be representing the township.
And in that context, then, it should have had the board should have approved that. If you're appointed as a township representative by the board. If you're a board representative by law or otherwise,
Yeah,
again,
that's different, yeah.
I think it's a different thing, so.
As an interested party to this sports authority, but not necessarily a legal entity in its existence right now,
Right.
what's our recourse for codifying representation on that board? Can we have that conversation? How would you start a conversation like that? I think the township has significant interest in this project.
I would agree.
Long haul, long term, and beyond a backdoor handshake between that complex and a resident of the township, we don't have very solid representation there. So I guess I just want to fix that problem, make it a board-appointed position, and I'd like to ask if this board wants to do that, and if so, what are the steps to try to engage in dialogue with
I think the first step.
Discover Kalamazoo and
The first step would be to have legal counsel go back and determine how that organization was formed, who formed the organization, and determine whether or not there's a way to reopen or add a board position.
So the history there is that Discover Kalamazoo had so many seats at the table, and they offered one of their seats to me because I'm the supervisor of Oshtemo. And so, I mean, I guess that's the history, so.
But it's not.
It's not codified.
It's not part of
It
the
is not
organizational.
codified that it's an Oshtemo seat into perpetuity.
Correct.
That is correct.
So if you wanted
The
that, you
board
would
has
have to.
had 1.5 meetings practically, so,
You'd have to go back basically to the units that formed it to see whether you could request opening that door.
right, essentially, we would be asking that authority to amend its bylaws and its charter or whatever.
Amend its,
Yes.
its forming documents, constitutional, however it was formed, and then revisit.
Well, I think
fill in that
that
position.
if we're going to be having that level of an investment in our community, I think, and this isn't about who's in that position right now, it's about continuity of representation on the next 100 years, right? Like,
Well,
and I think that this board would be the best positioned to select and present somebody from the township.
On an ongoing basis.
On an
in the
ongoing
future.
basis,
Sure.
yes.
Okay.
Just like we do to wastewater management,
Right.
that's what I'm thinking. If it happens to be Sherry, that's fine. It's not about the person in the role, it's about securing the interest of the township.
Then that's just a matter of doing some research, determining what the appropriate ask would be.
Yeah. That's what I would like to
There's
see
no
come
harm
out of
in
this
asking.
conversation tonight.
so the membership around the table, as it won't surprise you, is the city of Kalamazoo, the county of Kalamazoo, the hotel representatives, a developer representative, Discover Kalamazoo, and Oshtemo. I mean, that defines going around the table. I think there's an athlete at the table as well, with experience with youth sports
Yeah, I
facilities.
remember Jane came and
but that
told
So
us who's on the board.
I-
I'm familiar with the
I
makeup.
don't think, I guess, I appreciate what you're trying, you want Oshtemo to have
permanent seat?
ongoing representation.
Legal status within this authority?
So just remember that that authority isn't just the youth sports complex. That authority is over the hotel, the revenue that's going to be generated through the new hotel tax. The youth sports center is just the first project of that authority. So just bear that in mind. You know, there's going to be operators that operate the facility. You know, I'm not even certain if it's going to be a nonprofit facility. It very well may be. So is there going to be a board for the youth sports facility itself?
So you've got a lot of questions you want answered too, it sounds
So,
like.
I mean, it's just so much in its infancy that, you know, yeah, I mean,
What is that
I'm not a
organization?
handshake member of the
Discover
board.
Kalamazoo.
I mean,
Is that what,
What is that organization even called?
Discover Kalamazoo was the
Founder.
original one, wasn't it?
oh, well, that's the project lead, I guess, the authority, hold on, I'll have to
Sports
look up.
Authority or something like that?
The authority's name is,
There's go-
Kalamazoo County Event Center Assessment District Board of Directors, KCECAD, Kalamazoo County Event Center Assessment District.
That rolls off the tongue very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, whew.
I'm glad they spent a lot of time with that, but, you know, and the reason I brought this up when she was here is our residents have to bear a significant amount of cost for this specific project and any other project that may come out of this if it's in our township. This is bordered on all sides by our township. So police, fire, EMS, all of that's going to impact our residents disproportionately to the property that it's currently on, being in the city of Kalamazoo. There are very few ways to get to that property without accessing or going through Oshtemo Township. So there's significant costs, there's significant traffic impacts, there's significant police, fire, all of those things, and we have a guest spot for a short period of time. And I appreciate that they did that. I think they did that in part because they recognized that, but the impacts for that will outlast that 2-year appointment. The impacts for that are going to be permanent.
I don't disagree with you. I don't think that Oshtemo is viewed as a passe partner, just we're going to do good now. Also, I mean, it's just so in its infancy, but just, we've already had conversations, multiple conversations before the authority appointment even happened internally, regarding the possibility of this project being in our area and informing about what the hurdles were gonna be. And so, from Oshtemo's perspective, like, these are the things you need to think about that are gonna be problematic when you go to get a site approved, design, connectivity, like, all of those things. I don't believe that the seat at the table was done out of, just a handshake or a gesture. I also think that we are viewed as having very capable, strong, smart staff that can help inform the project and make it work for the community. So, I am the wet blanket at the table so far, and will continue to be so, I guess, as long as I'm welcome in that position. But, you know, I was invited to apply. It was a seat that was available to Discover Kalamazoo that they could have given to anyone else and could have left us out altogether.
You're really making this about yourself right now, and I don't know why, because I think what we're interested in is
I need to
securing
know
the
what you wa-
township's
what do you-
position
okay,
on that
what's-
authority. Has nothing to do with how you got to be that representative right now. It's the fact that you are, and they get to pick whoever. It could be the guy across
You're
the
right.
street
In
tomorrow or
2
whatever.
years.
And what I think is most important for this township over the next 100 years is that the government here gets to send a representative, and that we own a seat on that board, that we have an ownership and we are a true stakeholder, not just picking a random Oshtemo resident at large, because you talk about using the staff. Well, you're going there as a resident right now. You're not going there as Oshtemo Township Supervisor with the endorsement of the board. So I don't know how the staff is going to be traveling to that with you. That doesn't compute for me. So what I'm saying is, I don't worry about your position now. I want to secure Oshtemo's position within that organization, if it's possible. If it's not, then we live in this world that we're in today.
Well, I agree, I would like to pursue it, and I remember she said, and this was not, she said, we can't give a seat at the table to every township out there, and I said, we're not asking for every township, we just want Oshtemo. And I would like to continue pursuing that to see if we could get a permanent seat at that table.
And so what I'm asking from tonight is that we allow the township's attorney to do the research project, to come back with a report on, okay, what is this entity? How did it form? What are the avenues for us to maybe make an ask to get ourselves secured as members of the group? I don't, it doesn't seem, it's not it has nothing to do with who's in there. It might as well just be you. But let's get the document, the founding document saying that this township government has a seat at the table.
Right, I'm not asking for me to be the one in that seat, right?
So-
So it's fine with me.
The county owns the authority, so the next step, I think, would be reaching out to the county.
Can I make a motion to the effect of what I want to see take place after this? Are we open for that?
I am.
Yes.
I would move to authorize the township attorney to investigate the sports authority in the township here, to understand its formation and possible opportunities for the township to secure legal status within that organization, and to provide that report back to the board at a future meeting.
I'll support that.
We have a motion by trustee Ford and support by trustee Sikora. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Let's talk about that motion again.
Yeah, sorry, it's kind of long. I want the township attorney to give us a book report on the Sports Complex Authority and to help us analyze opportunities for us to secure our position within that legally.
And why do we need a motion for this? I guess I'm.
Because I want to make it
confused on
very
that.
clear what the board's direction is for the township's attorney on what we want to be researched and done.
I mean, I have no problem with, because I agree with you. I just don't know that it needs a motion. I mean, Jim's going to do it, but I'm fine with the motion. I just don't understand it.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
So to go back to the original,
I still need to be appointed.
yes, exactly. Let's go back to, I'll make a motion to, how do you want that phrase, Dusty? To appoint to?
Recommend Dusty
Recommend?
Farmer, yeah, because it's a recommendation of the
Okay,
county board.
recommend Dusty Farmer, Township Clerk, be appointed to the Central County Transit Authority Board.
Second.
A motion by trustee Sikora and a second by trustee Ford. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6 with 1 absent. Next, we move to item 10, which is our...
Before we move on to that, though, I just wanted to reiterate that my concern, and as trustee Ford alluded to too, is that personally, if I was being asked to join a board or appointed board because I'm a township official, I would ask for the board's support, because there are issues where maybe I'm on some other committee and my time is spent, board thinks that my time should be spent elsewhere. Or as trustee Ford said, if we're being asked to, or we're utilizing other township personnel and services, then that comes into play, well, where are we spending our money and what are people doing if there's going to be additional needs or people being, list of projects that, well, I can't get to that because I have to work on this other project, just so that the board has an understanding of that and gives their approval that we're good with that. And that's where I was going with that at the beginning. So that's my say, and I'm done. Thank you.
Next, we'll move to item number 10, which is the budget amendments, and we're going to walk through these. I got to get into my packet. Give me 1 second. I need another window. All right.
Gotta love those quick links.
Well, I know, aren't they great? And usually, usually I bring 2 computers to the meeting just for this purpose. And
I'm aware, I have way more space right now than I normally do.
I
It's
usually
very
have
luxurious.
2 computers, one to watch the Zoom and one to follow the packet. Okay, first we have a budget amendment before you from Sarah Feaster, our Human Resources Director. I'm happy to present these on her behalf. First is a budget amendment. It's no new money. As she shares in the background, originally when we anticipated hiring gardening services, we anticipated that would come out of maintenance services, but we ended up finding someone, and that it's more properly to come out of or be paid out of the park salaries. And so this budget amendment is to move $6,000 from the maintenance services line into the park salary line. Any questions on this budget amendment?
No, but I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment for moving for the seasonal gardener from maintenance services to park salaries.
Second.
Support.
Oh, sorry, Chapman.
I have a motion by trustee Sikora, a second by trustee Ford. Is there any discussion on the motion? I'm going to pause. Is there any public comment on the motion or on this item? No public comment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6 with 1 absent. Second budget amendment in front of you is that when Sarah was reviewing her quarterly budget tracking, came to her attention that we forgot to fund the general ledger line to cover the FICA for trustees compensation. And so the request is for $3,500 from general fund carryover to fund the general ledger so that we can appropriately budget for trustee FICA. Is there any question on this?
I move to approve the budget amendment for trustee FICA as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion by trustee Ford, a second by clerk Farmer. Trustee Chapman, did you have a
It can go
question?
in discussion.
Huh?
It can go in discussion. Yes, I did have a question, but
Oh,
it can go-
okay.
I can bring it up in discussion. It's
Is there
just a
any
point.
discussion on the motion then?
Thank you. Yeah, I believe that this is not the first time this one happened. I believe last year we had the same exact situation where FICA was not included. So I just want to make sure
For
that.
this general ledger line particularly?
For trustee, I believe it
Okay.
was. So I just want to make sure that.
We
this-
double check that?
We are double checking these things, so we don't have to do this again.
Or just remember the
Trustee-
last line there that says this will not occur in the
Yes.
future.
Which is why I'm saying that.
I don't remember that specific incident. I mean, I will note that one thing when you're running through the budget, when there are missing numbers, and you kind of, your eye tends to go to them, so I am surprised, but, yeah, duly noted.
Thank you.
Let's see, we have a motion and a second.
No, I don't. Oh, right. Board and Farmer. Yeah.
Is there any public comment on this item? No public comment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6 with 1 absent. Next, we have a budget amendment for employee benefits. It is, in my experience, at this time of year, it is making adjustments for employee benefits is necessary because the bills come in higher than projected. In this instance, she outlines for you that we underestimated benefits because the number of employees that we're going to enroll in medical, dental, and vision. I've heard from the HR director that more of our employees switch to our benefits due to changes in their spouses or partners' coverage. We underestimated the number of employees that were going to enroll in the dependent care flexible spending account. And several qualifying life events occurred this year, which increased the employer cost to benefits. And we had quite a few new hires in 2025, which also increased. So the budget amendment here is general fund carryover to fund health and life insurance. One from the 101, which is general fund, and the other represents our fire department, the 206.
Motion to approve the budget amendment for employee benefits.
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Chapman, a support by trustee Cole. Is there any discussion? No? Any public comment on this item? No? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6 with 1 absent. The last is from the Human Resources Department, and this is journal corrections for the legal department salaries. And so last year, in the budgeting process, we applied based on a percentage of Jim's time versus in department's amount of allocation of his salary, or the legal department's salary. And Sarah discovered that there were these journal entries that need to occur in the general ledger to accommodate how it was actually budgeted. Did I describe that
Yeah.
correctly, Dusty?
I think so. That was pretty good.
Okay.
I'm just glad you didn't ask me to explain this, because I don't understand it at all.
I had to ask her twice. I'm like, I know what it is, but how do I say it out loud? So, are there any questions on this item? So this is no new money. This is moving from one general ledger line into another, so it's properly accounted for. That's all it represents.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
okay. I move to approve the journal correction for legal department salaries as presented. Support.
I have a motion by trustee Ford, support by trustee Sikora. Any discussion on the motion? Any public comment on this item? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6 with 1 absent. Next, we will welcome Anna Horner back up to the podium, where she will continue her presentation regarding all things Public Works and Fabulous for 2026.
It's about time you get up here.
I brought my calculator, my comfort toy, which is my calculator, in case this gets crazy. All right. So, like I said, we ended on quite the point in the story, but again, I
Has to
think
happen.
at least this board is familiar with that, and so hopefully if we're all staying on the same path here, for lack of a better term, the question becomes, how do we pay off the bonds? Because we're getting more bonds. So we are having our bond counsel that's been helping us with the USDA project. They actually work with the Board of Public Works, so they are going to be involved in updating the cash flows to, for this total 35 million. And we got some updated numbers from the city about current usage. And so we're gonna have all the pieces to update the cash flows and make sure that we can repay this. I am confident we are pretty close still because sewer rates have gone up, thus our surcharge has gone up. And again, this is still prioritizing the highest number of connections, and we still have our other funding sources to contribute, like the general fund and the road fund. But before I get to the road fund, again, I always describe it kind of as these are the levers we have to pull, these 4 funding sources. We sometimes have the sewer 5th lever to pull if we have, again, a lot of development that occurs and we can have a sewer fund balance. But that's not as guaranteed. The USDA or another bonding source would want to see that money paid first because they want to assure that that's going towards the project before they start releasing their funds. And again, the road funds can only be spent on road-related items. So if it was just a road project to rebuild the road, those are the items we would look at: the sand sub base, the aggregate base, the paving, maybe some spot curb to repair if it's affecting drainage, new catch basins, things like that. So that's how we can allocate the road fund, and it is still about a third of the project cost. It's just that we have less money going towards it. So when you look at the entire bid tab for a project, it is still about a third of it that is road-related costs. We're just only paying back the total contract with about 20% of road funds. So that is one gap we have to fill as a possibility. So I'll get to the road fund, if you can see where I'm headed with that. Again, this is something I presented to the board last time, that currently our road fund is at 1.25 mils. That was increased, if you will, last year, but it was offset with the streetlight SAD, so essentially it came out in a wash. Currently for 2026, we're projected to bring in about $1.5 million in revenue, which includes a little bit of interest. So the millage is a little bit lower than that if you're trying to calculate, maybe on the next slide, how much 1 mil brings in. So again, the streetlights, we kind of did a straight conversion to what that should be from the road fund. It allows for about $40,000 of capital to happen every year. That's additional conversions or additional streetlights, and that will get us about 1 neighborhood a year if we want to keep doing that. We had some fund balance that we carried over from the street light fund, and so we have been able to do more of those with the sewer projects or as residents have requested them. But we will not always be able to accommodate that if we kind of keep it status quo. Operations is about 10% of the budget. That includes, our IT needs, not specifically John, but more of like our software-related costs, the technology that we're using, the software that we're using, staff, obviously the audit, things like that. Preventative maintenance, those are our projects with the road commission, mostly chip seals or HMA overlays. Those are to all of our existing roads, to make sure that at the time that they need the right fix, we are able to complete that. Sewer reconstruction, those are not only the USDA projects, but we also this year did an additional transfer, or just a higher transfer from the road fund, because like we're doing this Chime Street sewer project. So again, those road-related costs for the Chime Street project can be paid for with the road fund. So at a minimum, it's got to stay with the $350,000 to pay back the USDA projects. And then if there's other sewer projects and the road funds are available, we can contribute that. And then I talked a little bit about the master planning project. So we've been able to incorporate some of the planning into these. I three best examples are Seco Drive, Bluffton and RuPaul, which is the land behind the church on 9th Street that the township acquired to connect two different plats, and then Atlantic Avenue, which is looking at really a safety operations project to improve intersection spacing and intersection alignment along Stadium Drive. So to this point, we've really been able to finally be involved in the initial conversations and getting some of those things off the ground, getting some of the initial concepts put together, but we haven't funded any of the construction. And our current fund balance at the end of 2024 was just over $1 million. So this is the CIP for the road fund only. It shows different than I only showed the projects, the expenditures from the non-motorized projects, but this shows the revenues. I'm roughly saying a 3% increase every year, and then operating expenditures, again, those are kind of lumped in, but in the blue line would obviously have way more lines. I just put a 5% increase in those. Again, those include keeping the street lights on. They don't include converting or adding any street lights, and those costs, from what I've seen for some news articles, are gonna go up more than 5%. But again, in the aggregate of all the things lumped in there, I'm comfortable with a 5% increase there. And then in the peach, if you will, is the capital expenditures. So we are looking at a public works vehicle next year, purchasing that. The 8th Street reconstruction project, this is another one, Sherry, I moved from 25 to 26 because we're not gonna get to it this year. But that is just right outside our door. The road really needs to be done, but we have a policy that we won't spend road funds if we have sewer planned. That project sewer-wise is that there's a lot of existing industrial users towards the south end of 8th Street towards KL. And then we would anticipate development on the east side, if you will, of 8th Street. So we want to be prepared that a developer could connect to the sewer. Again, the preventative maintenance is what we are contributing to the projects that the road commission does. They also have been contributing about $270,000 a year. So we are getting quite a bit of work done as far as preventative maintenance. We're actually kind of out of projects to do till we can get some of these sewer roads reconstructed. We're really heavy on the roads that are at 2 or 3 and have failed. So the master plan projects, again, this easement and design is kind of that 10%. I said we've been involved in the planning, so we've been able to pursue the easements, look at some concept designs like for Seco Drive, but we have not finalized that design, but we got enough of a layout that we could go get an easement. So that's a round number for every year. And then again, the streetlight capital doesn't change at this point. And the transfer to sewer, the 350 is the bare bones amount that was agreed to back when the costs were much less. And I would direct you to the very bottom line, the ending fund balance, which shows that we stay pretty healthy, over $500,000. For the township, in an emergency, we don't really have a road emergency that we would have to go fix, like a sewer emergency. So having a fund balance isn't necessarily the same here, where I would think that we would have to go do something quickly on a road. It would never cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. On a sewer project, if a sewer got bored through or something happened to it, we could have to go spend a lot of money very quickly. So those fund balances, in my professional opinion, can be a little different, relatively speaking. This is the same thing, except if you add in construction for some of these master plan projects. So I just plugged them in 2027. We will not get them all done in 2027 because I'll live here more than I do. So we don't have the capacity to do that. We want to make sure we do them at the right time with our partners and leverage that opportunity. So these are kind of the worst case costs if we had to go to them solo. But again, a lot of these have benefit to other projects nearby them that are being talked about for development. So I think there's ways to get efficiencies and economies of scale if we could bid them with other projects and things like that. You could also see these not as just road projects, but you could see them as some of those non-motorized projects too, if you moved that over to be funded with the road millage versus the general fund. So, it's just under $2 million. In the next few years, we can be kind of agile in that sense, but there is the potential, if the board chooses and prioritizes, that we could invest in some other infrastructure. And the bottom line, again, then shows we do not have enough funds. Again, we wouldn't do these all in 1 year, so we could spread them out over various years, but the bottom number is still negative. Any questions on those?
Of those three that are boxed in, the Seco Drive Road extension jumps out as me as like the one that's most likely or most shovel-y ready at this point. Do you agree there, or?
The Bluffton and RuPaul one would be pretty shovel-ready too.
Okay.
Shovel-ready, I don't know.
I don't know what the word was.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
Much more feasible.
pending and ready
Yeah.
to like mobilize for, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then maybe in the other way, you said the three of them are not gonna go at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Do you need, you just we're gonna let them happen based on how the market drives the projects in the area? Or like, how do we prioritize those three things? Because if I look at those, like Seco Drive seems like the biggest value add for the community of the three of them. And one that seems like it's coming quickly, with the need for it, rather.
I mean, that's some of the direction I'm looking for. So if we only feel like we have an appetite for one of them, then the rest of them would kind of be pushed off until we could find grant funding or a partner that would, pay a bulk of it. So they would really get pushed down the line, pick which, I mean, it could be, they're not that different in cost of each other.
Right.
So, but even to be, agile enough to just do one of them, like 750 in 2027, we wouldn't have a fund balance then. So,
$250,000, yeah.
but, my point is kind of that, I can show this 6 slides of just add one project at a time, then the next year do that project. The point is still the same, is that if we want to pursue these projects, and they are a few years out, we have to let, partners know that we're committed to them as well.
Are you asking us to properly capitalize ourselves so that we can be in position to do these? Is that what you're getting toward?
Yeah, like
Okay.
what's the long-term sustainability
Yeah,
of
okay.
getting these projects done with a road fund that is currently covering probably only one of them?
Yeah.
So if we want to keep pursuing them at a faster rate, then we can do that. And so that's kind of what this is showing, like maybe kind of a worst case, if you will. But if we spread them out over a few years, I guess that what the things that shows is that we probably couldn't get some of these projects done till 2030 or 2034. So,
Yeah.
and again, I put the numbers in there very conservatively where it would always be my goal to find a way to get the best bang for your buck, if you will. Another project's going on where we're knowing that the road commission's paving 9th Street, and we can ask that contractor what their asphalt prices are, and they're already bringing out thousands of tons of asphalt, we'll get the best pricing. So, that's also what having a plan helps you do, is be able to predict those things and go after those opportunities. But at this point, I wouldn't feel comfortable going after more than one of these projects with our current revenue.
Gotcha.
So it depends on what the appetite of the board is, how much you want to chew off, I guess.
What, in your experience, when it comes to these types of capital infrastructure projects, is there bonding that communities will do to help accelerate getting these in? I mean, in this case, we don't necessarily have a payback mechanism for a road extension, right? Like you would a sewer pipe going in the ground. But that could help us put the money in the field quickly and give us some breathing room in our budget over time, right?
Yeah, I think there are various ways to do it, in the past. I've never experienced, I know Jim and Mark Elliott did this, but they worked with contractors who would basically fund them.
Okay.
I don't know that that's like what the rates of that would be at
Sure.
this point, if they want to be paid back in 3 years, 5 years, and at what percent, but obviously they're not going to do it for free.
Yep.
And I think that starts to look at our other funds and how we can, leverage our own dollars and pay ourselves back like our water fund.
Right.
But we would have to pay the water fund back with interest.
Sure.
If we do that. So it will come with a cost to do some of those other things.
Okay.
So we have some of our own cushion, I guess, to do that. But again, it's pretty unique that we have the water fund the way we do to do that.
Yeah.
It's not what somebody would typically be thinking as a strategy. And then,
I like that. If you're looking for any, like, feedback from the members up here, like, I would be interested in seeing what some of those financing options might look like that we could utilize to give ourselves some breathing room, to get the capital into the field, the infrastructure. I think financially for us, if we're looking at a potential for a revenue increase, it's probably a little easier for us to swallow if we financed the project, and now we're just paying that financing incrementally instead of trying to front load the capital to do the project within a year or two, make a better term. So I'd like to see us do that. I think we're at that stage now where the demand and the need for getting the projects done is outweighing like the concern about borrowing money to do stuff, I guess. So that's my 2 cents.
and that would be funding related to road building, but then we still have, the costs for, if we want to keep pursuing streetlights at the rate we have been. And then I think there's some flexibility if the board agrees that, because when you think of the life cycle of a road or a house, any tangible thing, you might pay more for it up front, and then you can spread the maintenance costs over time or the repair costs. So right now, we might be less than we anticipated initially for preventative maintenance because we have to prioritize new roads. But then in the whole life cycle of every mile of road, it gets the same amount of money in 50 years. So that's the other opportunity I see, is to move some of the preventative maintenance funding we're overmatching par right now. Again, we're kind of, I'm sure we can find projects, but I don't want to be spending dollars, right now when we have these other projects. And I would rather look at, a 5 to 10 year plan and be able to achieve more.
I hear you. I'm with you.
Okay, so the funding for the roads, to come back with some ideas on that. Do you have any feedback on the non-motorized part?
In what way are you asking me that question? Like, because I want to see road construction be like complete streets, right? So that we have the appropriate facilities in the appropriate places. So blanket answer is yes, but could you more specifically ask me what you're asking?
Using road funds to complete more non-motorized.
Yes. Supportive of, and would be willing to understand what that means for rates. Is that
The
fair?
millage rate.
Yeah, for the
Okay.
millage rate. If, I think Clerk Farmer, we've both been on this board long enough to talking about complete streets and what that means, right? And if we have that wherewithal within our road millage to fund that, to see our priority through, I mean, absolutely, I'd be interested in doing that.
So, just a question, if that's, why wouldn't we just use the financing mechanism that you described before regarding road projects? Because you'd put those in, like,
I mean, I think you would. I think one's revenue and one's spend, right? Is what I'm thinking of right now. So what we were talking about earlier was spending through debt proceeds and now paying that debt proceed back through potential revenue adjustment.
Yeah,
That's-
so we could do financing for roads or for non-motorized, to your point, Sherry, but even whatever that annual repayment is, we would have to then repay it with a revenue increase. And some of those projects, like the TAP projects, we can't do with, I don't know how we would coordinate with bonds on those. Ooh, I would try, but I don't, that would be a little trickier.
Well,
but-
I mean, and the one thing that we don't have on staff, Dusty and I have talked about a little bit, is somebody dedicated to go out and bring more funds into the township, like a grant writer.
There's a guy here that could help with that, I think.
I mean, I think, you know, all the departments do their part to help bring funds into the township, but there's nobody specifically sitting down, and I think there are communities that do that sit down and like go out and obtain funding from other sources. That's
Yeah, and there are communities that bundle projects and then bond for 10 years, you know, and, but that, yeah, you just have to recognize that that's a long-term payment than you have. And again, I don't know how we would coordinate that with the TAP grants, but I'll think about that a little bit. But it could be some of those other projects that might not be on a federal aid eligible road. So it wouldn't qualify for TAP grants. I'm gonna try and think of an example right now.
Jim, just for my edification and for the rest of the board, it's 3 mills is what the board is authorized by state to levy for the road millage? Is that 3? Yeah, thank you.
No, John, operating is 5.
Oh,
Yeah, it is a little hard to bring to the board, like again, we could edit the CIP and show you screenshots, but, you know, you change one number and it, the whole thing has a domino effect. So that's what I really want to understand is where your priorities are, what your comfort level is with how to pay for things, and it sounds like financing is definitely something that would be highly considered. At least I've heard from one person, I mean, others can speak up, but.
Yeah, and I find
I would
Seco
agree.
Drive to be the priority project of the 3, if that's what we were doing.
is that the priority? Why, I guess I'd like to know more about that. How would you prioritize these 3 different projects?
Me personally?
Yeah. I don't,
I
I'm not
usually-
gonna come up with the answer.
I mean, we could, similar like we do with the sewer connection neighborhoods, you know, like safety would probably be the easiest top priority. So we have quite a bit of crash history on West Main without a secondary road, and so I think we could definitely prove the safety piece for that. I don't think the safety piece would necessarily be there from the Bluffton and RuPaul connection, maybe from an emergency response standpoint. You know, and then obviously we've talked about the safety of Parkview and Atlantic to the nth degree. The other thing is, I'm gonna call it like return on your investment. So if we connect Seco Drive and it connects, you know, a potential, I forget now what the number is, but 400 units in a commercial development, and, you know, that is a huge benefit beyond just those 400 users, you know, to the entire network. And we could come up with probably a number of how many, because we have the traffic data of how many people are using the secondary roads, 9th Street and West Main, and how that would affect them. So we could come up with a way to kind of score those, if that makes sense, or prioritize them with a more written methodology. But those would be the first 2 things that come to mind for me. Or if they, you know, maybe we don't have, sometimes like you build business technology research parks and you build it and they will come kind of thing. So you can do it as an economic development tool. If that was a priority of the board, maybe in certain areas, again, like the DDA, that would be one of their higher scoring factors. But those are the 3 that come to mind.
Well, I agree that the Seco Drive, that would have been my first priority, and that it just opens up so many more opportunities and covers so many different things. You know, the earlier presentation on Metro Transit, you know, someone who lives out in the west side, you know, it'd be nice to have more trail, bike paths or whatever, because that provides an alternate route or an alternate method of travel for people who may be working or trying to go somewhere that we don't readily have with bus routes and things like that. So I think that's also important, whether it's fixing the ones we already have or, putting in new ones. I think that should be a priority too. Now, what's the highest priority here of those? That I don't know. I think that those are my kind of priorities. How can we facilitate safe travel, as you were commenting earlier, but also the Seco Drive extension, just because of the possibilities it opens up in that area.
And I agree with the Seco. Having looked at the traffic study, that's absolutely necessary. We are at certain times approaching critical numbers on the two roads, and that has to be avoided at all costs. We can't afford to expand those, nor do we want to expand those roads. So Seco is absolutely on the top. For me, non-motorized is one of the few things that I can pull that distinguishes our community from others. And we also had, through our surveys of our citizens, that was also something that was listed as a priority of them. They very much wanted more non-motorized capabilities in the surveys that we put out. So those are my two priorities, if that helps at all.
And Seco, again, that's the example, but the priority behind that is the relief to our roads and having additional, building out that network, providing additional connections, things like that. I know we're having this conversation about very specific roads, but it
Absolutely.
is something I would, think about then as we make the next year's CIP and as we keep looking at projects. So I'm focused on, what are the priorities behind the
mean,
projects?
Just like funding a non-road, I don't know what you call it, that connects all the development that'll be occurring on 9th Street to get them off 9th Street, connecting all of that all the way up to Latitude and beyond. Absolutely. Getting anything off 9th Street is a priority.
Okay.
I mean, West Main. Sorry, West
Yeah.
Main.
Yeah, I echo that. I completely agree. That's a great synopsis, and I support that. And back to the funding thing, find ways for us to fund it, proposals, whatever. I'm old enough that I don't want to keep talking about these things, and pushing them back every year. I'd like to be able to use some of them. So I'm all for however we can fund these things. The more we can do. I understand you don't want to spend more time here doing all these projects, but if we have funds for that, then maybe we find additional personnel to help with the workload and get this stuff done. Project manager or someone who's charged with doing these to help take that work off your shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, there's benefits of bundling them too from a resource management standpoint too, because if we spend a big year just focusing on the design and make sure we get the design right, then frees up the time probably the subsequent year. So it helps looking at the few years in advance or down the road. From that standpoint too, just from a resource management, human capital, time spending
And I think
effort too.
financing is going to be absolutely critical because you basically laid out a 20% year-over-year increase in costs. Our finance charges are not going to be that. So it actually is cost saving instead of kicking the can down the road to finance these from alternative methods that are going to have lower interest rate because it's just going to go up 20% per year or more. So financing it actually could be in our taxpayers' interest.
I agree with Michael. I'd like to see the options for that. I also don't want to neglect the streetlight capital. You said that these numbers, the 40,000 is just to maintain what we have. So I'm curious about, you said the costs are increasing every year, 5%. Are we lacking in to me, the streetlights are very important, number one, because you said that that is one of the top things that the residents say that they want. I also think that I know that it cuts down on crime. It's a safety issue as well. So I guess I'd like to see what the numbers are there for making that a priority as well. But,
Yeah, it's funny because when somebody says they are interested in streetlights and then we have consumers do the photometric plan, they're like, that is way too many lights, you know? And so we usually cut it in half has been kind of our standard recently. But, so yeah, that 40,000 really could probably do a pretty small neighborhood, maybe, a mile of residential streets. It really wouldn't get a very big neighborhood done. So in the past 2 years, Zach was listening for a while, I don't know if he's still on there, but we've spent about $100,000 and been able to do 2, 3, 4 neighborhoods. So that's, again, was using the fund balance. And the idea was that those conversions that we were spending capital on would save us money because they would use less electricity. But the reality is a lot of the projects show we need additional lights, and then the rates are increasing faster than, that savings is recognized. So, yeah, this would, I don't know what electric rates are going to increase every year over year, but I think they're one of those things that when they can ask for a jump, they ask for a big jump, and then it's not so much for a few years, and that's a big jump and then.
And the Public Service Commission never seems to keep them in check.
Right, yeah. So, but definitely to do more streetlight capital, this would not get us very far.
I just would like to see that. I would like to see that a priority as well. I think it's important, and the citizens think it's important as well, so.
And this is a small thing, but as I mentioned, non-motorized is a priority, but as part of that, and this is a very small thing, and I would hope perhaps we could find grants, but signage, bikeway signage and others, because we have them. We have maps of them drawn out, but we don't have signage. We don't have wayfaring, and because we don't have signage, there's also safety issues. On the shared roads with cars, the cars don't realize that's an actual approved bike route because there's no signage. So it's not just for the cyclist, but it's also for the motorist to know. So it's a safety issue at a relatively low cost.
Okay, well, it's good to hear about funding. I definitely think it's a tool that municipalities have, different than other businesses, and it does come at very low rates, and so it is a advantage, and it can be a benefit. It obviously has to be properly managed, but Oshtemo doesn't, we now have debt. I have to say that for the first time, but we didn't for a long time, which is probably pretty unique in our community our size. But we have the sewer bonds now. That's the only debt I know of that we have. And I don't know what the debt was before that. Maybe Jim, you know, but
We have rapid growth.
Very limited.
yeah.
We have rapid growth, and
Yep.
with rapid growth, that's an investment, because if you want to have continued growth, you're going to need to provide this. So it's, yeah, we have rapid growth, and that rapid growth will be able to pay it off over time with that growth, but the growth will not continue if we don't make investments.
And this coming from the fiscally responsible trustee of the board.
Okay,
Conservative.
so I would kind of
We're
say
responsible.
this feedback and build our CIP around a certain amount of debt service, if you will, our road CIP around a certain amount of debt service.
Yeah.
And then we'll probably pick a low end and a high end, and then we can have the board decide where they're comfortable at and what we can get done within those amounts. And I think for projects like this, it's usually like a 10-year term.
So you're
Okay.
going to put together some numbers for us
Yeah.
that will include the things that we want to.
So essentially, this box around these numbers will be projected out over 10 years, let's say, and it'll be, what, $200,000 per year. So then when you look at the bottom number, it looks much more
Healthy,
manageable.
less anemic.
yeah, and less increases and things like that, so. And then I could do one that shows like, $400,000 a year of a repayment, and then the board can decide what they're comfortable with. If one maybe stays, I don't know off the top of my head, but if one stays within the current millage, or if one is an increase, maybe we plan for it, in a year or two or something like that. But I would kind of show, two different levels, and then staff, if we pursued that, would be able to backfill what those projects were from the master plan, and obviously the board approving the CIP and the budget.
And you're going to see the master plan on the 23rd, too. Oh, wonderful.
I hope you're going to see it way before.
I was gonna say,
Oh, right. The presentation's at the joint board meeting, but you'll get, you're going to need to dive into it before that.
Yeah.
It's a couple hundred pages long.
Yeah. Okay, well, and again, these were just some of the things that I said, we could, the different ways to prioritize the funding, but I think we talked through that well.
Change Act 51. Yes, change Act 51.
Yeah, change Act 51, still on the list.
For the rest of the board, the GIS shows which lights have and have not been converted. So you can distinguish in the township our LED and our high-pressure sodiums and the ones that are currently undergoing conversion. So if you want to see where we're at, and if you can identify what areas are important to you, I guess. Thanks for sharing that.
And you can report a streetlight outage from there as well, which helps because then they will convert those once they're out, once the HPS are out. So, okay.
Part of the maintenance of that, if one is out, they replace it with the LED. And that's
At their cost. We don't have to pay for that, yep.
Zach and I were gonna start a slingshot brigade.
I do have children.
We've been recruiting for 8 years.
Children with target practice, they would love those.
I think I want to, we spent a lot of time talking about the road stuff, but I just want to make sure that the board understands that with regard to the second phase of the sewer, the conversation regarding bonding with the county has already started, and Anna's working on working through the USDA documents to get that ready for the next USDA loan. And then next, I think I wanted you to see that the additional bonding is going to be 15 million. And so that is going to have to come back. That's going to have to go through their process, but we've got to get all these wheels in motion because we don't want to lose our second USDA loan to a clawback. And we're getting a lot of friendly reminders from our USDA representative.
Yeah.
To keep moving forward. So I guess I just want to impress upon you that that isn't going to be dragged out. That work is in process and will be coming before you. And it's going to include what the USDA looks like, right? But it's also going to be that update about the other set of bonds through the county.
Yeah, and I don't want to lose sight of the fact that when we rerun these cash flows, again, we've been, in some ways, the delays have meant more connections, so more surcharge, more connections and increased rates from the city, so more surcharge. But when we look at this table, I definitely think from an equity and a proportionality standpoint, the next lever to pull is the road fund and to try and kick that contribution back up a little bit. So that would also probably be in the next round of the CIP, is to see some of that preventative maintenance work going towards the sewer repayment to help fill this gap that we're gonna have for the additional 15 million. And again, just bring it back to where it's paying for the road portion of the funding. When you look at a cash flow for that many years out, and a little bit each year really doesn't move the needle that much, but at the end, it adds up. So you don't always have to, if we're contributing $350,000 of road funds right now, it's not like we're gonna have to double that. A 20% increase of that can go a long way.
Her percentages and her numbers here on this too presume the same connection fee that we had for Phase 1. And I know it's nothing, we haven't talked about it, but it's one of her levers, is that do we want to keep those connection fees at, what, $7,500?
For residential,
But, I mean, considering that was the number set in 2021,
yeah, or two, yeah. It's been quite a few years.
I mean, do we have to revisit those connection fees? So, anyway, it's
Yep.
just things that we're gonna have to think about.
Okay, thank you for the feedback.
Thanks, Anna.
I think the Public Works Department will be pretty ready to finalize our budget items from this discussion, our funds, I guess I'll say. So, thank you.
Okay, we had a couple of additional items added to our agenda. One was, I think, an update on the progress on the budget. Yeah, so after our meeting, our last meeting, the HR director went back and added all of the salary information, so that's in there now. We're waiting the benefit information to come through. Hoping to have that. I know she's reached out to our insurance company already about getting those numbers for benefits. I know the fire department is probably 95% done, and I don't know, I haven't seen, have you got numbers in the budget yet? Yeah, so I would say it's in pretty good shape as far as preliminary numbers are in the general ledger. We have a policy about how much carryover of our savings account we can use. And so I didn't want to fill in so we use carryover to balance the budget every year, pretty much. And it usually works fine. We usually end up putting back a little more than we even borrowed, so that part is good. But given the increase regarding the compensation and also the increase regarding the benefits, I am hesitated to fill those numbers in, the final carryover numbers, until I talk to our accountant to make sure that I'm not breaking the policy about how much we can use from the various funds. We can change the policy, if we want to, but I didn't want to finalize that until I had a firm grip on how much carryover funds we could use to balance the 2026 budget. The other thing is, you did get a draft revenue report from the treasurer, and those numbers are in the budget, and those numbers include a presumptive 3% increase, what's the word? Taxable value
Oh,
increase. Those numbers are presumptive of a 3% taxable value increase, and then they were built off of the millage rates as they stand currently. So, the L 4029, I actually ordered it today, asked for it today from the assessor, and that will be in your next packet, and we don't fill that out until the board meeting, until we have a discussion and a vote on those millages, and then I believe we will do the SADs for fire, police at the same time, but
We usually do.
we usually do, so, anyway. That's the status.
Yeah, well, my concern is that we don't know, we have to finalize something at the next meeting, and you're gonna come and give us a bunch of numbers that we need to make a decision on when we don't know whether we have enough revenue to cover everything, whether we just talked about finding ways to raise revenue for roads and other things, millages, and, you know, how do we decide whether we want to change any of those millage numbers for next year, or what we want to do, if we
So-
don't know how much anything costs? I guess that is where I'm going with this. I don't know, where are the numbers?
Well, you have the projected revenue report that was defined, just as I told you. Those numbers are what will be in the general ledger that are already inputted. I mean, you just got them in bulk. So, you know, if we add .25 to some millage, then we'll have to go back in and change those. We're not voting on the whole budget. I
No.
mean, just the millage rates is
No,
what
but we
we're-
need to know whether we're out of whack by $5 million, or we're under budget by, you know, $10 million?
I understand that.
That's where
The implication of
lost.
the adjustments is pretty significant, so, I mean, that's why, before I brought any, I wanted to understand how much we could use of forward funds before we even look at those preliminary numbers.
The use of carry forward funds doesn't affect the cost, though.
It-
So I think we want to see what the costs are looking like right now in rough draft form. So I guess I have the same concern, because we've been in this position before in various previous boards over the last 10 years, where it's like, we're working on a budget, and we owe the county that form to set our rates, and so the amount of time that we have to look at our liabilities and our revenues is so small, and then we have to make that decision, and then it's like, okay, well, we've set our revenue, now what can we possibly cobble together with a budget for the rest of this year and for the next year? So I guess we want to have a better understanding of where our costs are going to come in for the year, so that we can
I'll
really
just say
good-
that, like, right off the bat, without even talking about using carry forward, just what we've got in generally basic right now, if we didn't use any carry, we're way over budget for what we're projecting for revenue.
Yep,
Okay.
okay, we want to see it, that's all. We will, give us a rough draft
Okay.
as soon as possible, please.
Yeah, preferably before the next meeting, so we can look at it.
And have time.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that all that you wanted covered, Neil?
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have time for public comment. I see our state representative is here very patiently. Wow. Welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor Bell, as well as the trustees. It's been a long day, 5 a.m. to now, like, I've had my government quota for the day. But I do appreciate the in-depth and serious way that you guys talk about and work together to solve problems. I wish that's what was happening in Lansing. I wanted to stop by for just a couple of reasons. And then I saw on the agenda that Director McBride was here earlier. We should have carpooled. He was in my office earlier today. I just wanted to share a couple observations and make sure everybody's kind of looking ahead a little bit. Good news, bad news. Bad news is that if I was a betting man, I'm not, but if I was, or if I'm just giving public health guidance, I'll tell you that it's not looking good for an October 1st budget deal. So I hope citizens who are tuning in or watching the recording of tonight's meetings take advantage of using the next couple weeks to get business done with the state before October 1st. I took my own son in to do a title transfer last Friday to Secretary of State on an old car. Like, anything that you got lining up where you've got to do business with the state, I really recommend people get that done before October 1st. At 12:01 a.m. on October 1st, I can't remember if it's 16 or 19 years ago, last time we had this kind of problem, people who were camping in RVs in state parks were shown the exits. We don't have a full report from the governor yet as to what state departments will shut down which lines of business on October 1st. She has to put that together over the next couple days. I'm a member of the Appropriations Committee. I sit on the Budget Committee. I'm on 2 subcommittees. There's not been a single budget go through regular order in the House. All the good work that I watched you guys just do, none of it has been done. Negotiations that should have started in April or May got started a week ago. Again, I'm showing up to work, meeting with McBride or others every day in Lansing, trying to continue to understand what's going on and how to help. But there's very little input that I can tell you that we're going to have at this point. And I suspect that we're far enough apart, though I'm not in the room with the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader and the Governor's team to negotiate the deals. Everything I'm hearing is that people should be planning on a shutdown on October 1st. So that is the bad news. Within that context, there's a little bit of good news as I hear you wrestling with revenue forecasts and things like that. We know the state budget is going to be smaller this year than last year because, we have a constitutional requirement for a balanced budget and revenues are going to be lower. We've seen the revenue forecast change from January to May and on, where we're expecting at least $1.5 billion, maybe more, just downturn in state revenues from macroeconomics, tariffs, all kinds of things. And so, we know that this is going to be a budget that is going to be smaller than last year's. Within that context, the constitutional requirements for revenue sharing have not changed. The formulas aren't changing. Even Act 51 isn't changing, right? So, unfortunately.
Although, can we talk about that?
Sure, though I'm not sure how helpful I can be.
Yes,
but
you can.
I'm happy to talk about
We
it.
have suggestions.
But what I will say is that, there's not a budget proposal that has done anything anything less than flatline revenue sharing coming from the current fiscal year into next fiscal year. It doesn't get the 3% bump or things like that were in budgets that were prepared in January and February, like the governor's budget, before we saw some downturn in the economy leading to cuts in the state budget that are required. But the budgets that have been prepared later in the year still have it as a flat rate, and I think the number, flat number, I think the number was $553 million for some of the revenue sharing line item. That's the same from one year to the next. The Senate proposed a 3-tiered adjustment to revenue sharing that would have added $75 million into that pool, but that's not in the House version. So where that comes out in negotiations, no one knows. Well, maybe 3 people know, but not me. I just wanted to make sure you heard the bad news as well as the good news in terms of being able to forecast things. I don't have a specific target to tell you to plan for, but while there could be and will likely be, in my estimation, some disruption in services and businesses with the state, I think that when we do get a deal, and we will eventually get a deal, the dollars should be there for at the same level in revenue sharing from this year. But that's my best guess.
Aside from constitutional revenue sharing, what's the other one? Statutory. I mean, it's far less money, but have you heard anything about, is it even in the budget?
So, depending on which budget you're talking about, again, the Senate's had proposals, the House had proposals that are very different. So I wouldn't hazard a guess as to where it will end up. In the House, there's been a number of changes to the way our budget has been constructed this year. And in all honesty, it's been very opaque. So some of the things like the requests that we talked about, Supervisor Bell, earlier in the year around, I can't remember if it was a fire truck, fire station, the LDSI, legislative directed spending initiatives. Those things have changed in the way they go through the process. And there's at least talk about a cap of $100 million on all of them statewide. So how that pans out, I really don't know. I do encourage everyone who's hearing from superintendents about cuts to school foods or to folks who are hearing about a $3.7 billion cut to Medicaid, and to those of us who are trying to figure out how we minimize those kinds of effects and maximize the opportunity to get funding for roads. Be engaged, please. You're welcome to call me and come meet with me and et cetera, but also remember that we've got only 3 or 4 people in the room right now. So advocating for some of these changes with the parties who are in the room is your best bet I'm happy to take any other questions or things like that offline. I know I was only supposed to talk for 3 minutes, or follow up with anybody, however you'd like.
Any questions?
Oh, one more bit of relatively good news. Trustee Sikora has asked me every time I've seen him for the last several months, what's the situation with a power study? So, as you're aware, as I'm painfully aware, my own home graying out, browning out routinely. We've had a problem with the grid. Comments were not lost on me where the Public Service Commission is and isn't doing their job. Oshtemo is definitely on my radar screen. I've talked about it with consumers multiple times. There were several blackouts, brownouts in the Amberley neighborhood in Portage that got a power study done as a result of those brownouts, blackouts, just about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it's my understanding from consumers that you guys are next. So I was happy with the product that came out of the Portage Consumers Power Study, and we'll continue to push on that, but I think that's the next one on the queue. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for doing that and following up on it. And I've since gotten people down 4th Street and everything wanting to send me all their information because they heard I was pushing that with you and had some connections. So
We
there's
won't
a lot
lose
of
track of
people who are really going to appreciate that, you pushing through and working with that and getting that done. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks.
Okay, any other public comment this evening? No? No other public comment? Claire, I see you're online. Did you want to say anything as a part of public comment? You've been so quiet and patient.
No, just the email that we received today about reduced revenue sharing that was being moved to roads. My guess would be that those are state roads and not local fund money that's coming in for local roads.
Okay, thanks. I'm not sure I have to go back and find the email you're talking about. It's not ringing a bell for me. Huh? Oh, yeah, I haven't read that one. I didn't open that one yet. Okay, next we'll move to board member comments and committee updates, and we'll start with trustee Cole.
Yeah, so I just want to bring this up, and I don't know if this is even in our wheelhouse, but so the accident that occurred a few weeks ago that took the lives of the 2 teenage girls that happened that our firefighters responded to just made me start wondering what, if any, resources that we have in place for our firefighters. And I guess that really goes for the sheriff's department as well, although I know that they probably have differing programs. I just started thinking about obviously all of the, well, not all of, but many of the calls that our firefighters go to are secondary trauma inducing, of course. So I don't know if they have anything in place to have training on, dealing with secondary trauma, processing those things for their own mental health. I do know that first responders in general, the suicide rate is quite a bit higher than it is for the general public, and I just want to make sure that we're taking care of them. And there is a lot of training out there that is very low cost and or possibly free. If there isn't anything in place, because I also know that first responders are sometimes the last ones to ask for that type of help. But I'd like to see us offer it. And again, I don't know if that is in our wheelhouse.
No, we do, actually, we have a program.
Oh, we do? Okay, because I was going to say, I'd be happy to look into some free or low-cost programs, but what do we have in place? What are the programs?
So, do you know? Because
So through our insurance, we have counseling available, obviously,
Right,
but they
right.
have a separate, I guess I shouldn't be speaking to it.
I know, I wish the chiefs
Sarah
were
would
here.
give the best she could give you examples and talk you through it.
Okay, because I mean, I realize that with our insurance or their insurance, that of course you can go to
This is
a
beyond
counselor.
that. Yeah, this
Okay,
is beyond
but I'm talking, there, a lot of times first responders don't want to seek that help. So to have somebody come in to provide that type of help to everyone, that doesn't single anybody out or anyone that wants to. Yeah, I mean, I can follow up with Sarah. I just want to make sure that we're, you know, covering
So
that.
they immediately, so I actually reached out to the night of that accident. I was in communication with the deputy chief, and I asked that very question. So they do a debrief immediately after the scene clears, and then there's another, a follow-up to check on the mental health of the firefighters that were part of that scene. And then I believe that, I'll stop there, because that's what I know. I think there's one more thing, but, so,
There's a counseling service, and that's the part
I
that she
I
would
feel like
explain.
there might even be a chaplain that checks on
Yes,
them.
there
So,
Yeah, and I
But-
mean, that's all fine, and especially the debrief, I'm assuming that is interdepartment debriefing amongst themselves, or somebody that takes the role of leading it. If we don't have it, I would like to see an outside professional agency come in that can actually offer that training, and not just after a particularly horrible, you know, scene that they had to go to. I think it should be something that we're doing, I don't know what a regular basis would be, but I think it's important. And again, if there is a gap, I just want to identify if there is a gap there. If there is, I'm more than happy to look into ways to fill it, but I would like to see an outside, I guess, training come in.
okay. Trustee Chapman?
Yes, I messaged you this about a couple weeks ago, knowing that a state budget was likely to be an issue. Do we have any idea of the direct impacts to us should a shutdown occur? And would there be any loss of services or revenue issues that we would need to address immediately should a shut-off or shutdown occur?
That is a good question, and I will work with the treasurer to find out. So, in theory, our revenue should stay stable. However, if the state treasury office turns off, what does that mean for our day-to-day operations? So, yeah.
As well as construction
MDOT, yeah.
issues on our main highways, since West Main is
Any,
barely
yeah,
navigable
so any
now.
state agencies that we interact with. Yeah, don't even say that.
Thank you.
I'll go this way. Trustee Ford?
No comments tonight, thank you.
Trustee Sikora?
Yeah, I have a few things to share. Last month, I dropped off electronics, pesticides, cleaning supplies, and fluorescent light bulbs at the county Household Hazardous Waste Center, and that's a great service that's provided, and they have friendly workers there. Fall is a great time to clean out your garage and basement and take things there to be handled appropriately, and I hope we can continue to support that service for our residents. Last week, I was able to join the Friends of the Parks volunteer session as they continued at the Drake Farmstead. We're getting prepared for the next event on Sunday, September the 28th from 2 to 4 p.m. It will feature an open house at the Drake House, guided trail tours, events for children, music, and more. Tomorrow, I'll be at the Hardship Advisory Review Committee meeting. Thursday, I'll be at the Kalamazoo Regional Water and Wastewater Commission meeting. Friday, I'll join the Friends of the Parks volunteer session as we continue our efforts at the Drake Farmstead. Next week, Tuesday, I'll be at the Friends of the Park Board meeting, and Wednesday, I'll be at the Parks Committee meeting, and there's lots going on, and it's always great to be able to help out and make Oshtemo a great place to live and visit. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Treasurer Bushka, is there anything you want to share?
I don't really have any comments other than to just address a quick prior question, and that is if the state shut down on a Treasury Department level, the payments would likely to stop for revenue sharing, but I don't worry about that too much because once they open again, then they would continue and pick up where they left off.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take yeah. How many state departments cross our, the only, like, well, maybe not MDHHS, because we don't offer any services. Anyway, Clerk Farmer?
As part of my involvement with the early voting focus group, we were informed today that the first draft of that agreement that would affect our elections next year, it's ready, and so I'll be bringing that before this board soon to get a look at it. That's all I have right now.
Okey-doke. Just a reminder that this Saturday is Shred Day at Oshtemo Township Hall. That occurs from 10 a.m. to noon here at Township Hall. So if you're a resident, you're welcome to bring, I believe, 7 bankers boxes to be shred, 6 bankers boxes to be shred. So I want to remind people with fall cleanup to make sure you come and get your vouchers so that you can utilize our wonderful service to take yard waste. We have yard waste vouchers, and we also have resident yard or dump waste or whatever. I hate that word. Yeah, non-hazardous stuff. I was glad you reminded us about the hazardous stuff. And that, oh, it's right in front of me. I knew there was one more thing. I was at the road commission today. I was there with the Parks Director, Vanessa Street, and with the support of our legal department, our Public Works Department, our Parks Department, probably the Planning Department too. We put together a packet to get on their agenda, and we were able to successfully secure the last parcel that we discovered for the Fruit Belt Trail, and they accepted our offer. But it wouldn't have been for all of the work, so that everybody did to put together why I thought our request was reasonable. So, really good news there. And while I was there, they reminded me that there's, and I hope you all get this email to you, but the Road Commission is having their Class 103 for local township officials. Are you guys on the Road Commission email distribution list? Oh, I'll make sure that you get added to it. But anyway, on Wednesday, September 24th, from 3 to 6, there's an open house extravaganza. So, at the Road Commission, but I'll make sure you all get a copy of this and get added to their distribution. I'm surprised you're not on there. With that, I guess that ends my comments. This meeting is adjourned.